The root of sex, when you look at the crisis we are facing today in our society, we all are confused. And except we understand where it all went wrong, restoring back the hope of our society might be very highly impossible. And just like in my own belief that we can save this country, we can save our society, we can create a better society for our children, I need each and every one of us to understand, no matter how much love we think we have for our children, if we have failed to live a better society for them, then we have left nothing. So the more reason I took it upon myself to look deep. Because the truth is, our crisis is not on the surface. Our crisis is highly interwoven to the point that if we fail to understand the interwovenness of the situation, we will not be able to really see where the problem comes from. So this is one of the reasons why one of my findings took me to the understanding of sex, that if we must solve this problem, we need to go back to the origin and retrace back the step up to the moment. By so doing, it will avail us the opportunity and the understanding to dissect and understand the root of our problem, and we'll be able to solve it. Now, sex. Today, we all understand sex to mean a lot of things. But before I dive into the definition and the likes of sex, I need us to go and look at it critically. Why sex? Why did God create sex in the first place? Why did God create sex in the first place? If we can understand the reason behind sex, we'll be able to see where it all went wrong. Because in my own perspective, I always prove it to those who care to listen. The real problem we are facing and the only solution to our problem rises and revolves around sex. The more we understand sex, the more we'll be able to solve our problem. Now, why did God create sex? When you look at in the beginning of the whole creation story, we're made to understand that God is all. We're made to understand from the Bible explanation that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was the Word. Now, if you observe the nature of the beginning, you realize that the totality of decision was decided by God. There was no other decision maker, there was no other partaker in the decision making process. God was the only decider of everything in the beginning. Now, when you look at when the creation story was to start, we were made to understand that in the beginning everything was dark. In the beginning everything was dark, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Now, the first day of creation, we're made to understand that God separated the light from the dark. So the creation of the day and the night was the beginning of sex. Now, when we say sex, by design, the nature of sex was as a creative process. Sex is designed as a creation process. Now, when God wants to decentralize the decision-making process, when God wanted to create co-creators, God wanted co-creators. That was why God initiated the ideal of creation of energy. Because one thing we all need to understand is this: what God actually created, you and I existing, we are not actually human. We are more energy. We are more of energy. It's high time we start seeing ourselves as energy. When we see ourselves from the perspective of energy, we'll be able to understand how some other things evolve. Now, what God created in the beginning was energy. The night was an energy system. The day was also an energy system. When we look at it critically, we would understand the fact that the energy system was designed to create a production system. That is the design of the energy system. Now, when God created the day and the night, the fusion of the day and the night created something. The fusion of the day and the night created something. And what it creates is where the interest comes in. Now, when you also look further, we also made to understand that, and God separated the lower waters and made the upper waters becomes the heaven, and the lower waters become the earth. When you look at that too, you would also realize that the creation system, the heaven and the earth, also constitutes a co-creative system. It is very logical, but we need to understand it. Now, when you look at the advent of the day and night, the advent of the day and night created a system of timing. The advent of the day and night created a system of timing as a creation system. Time in itself, time is what each and every one of us has. That which God has given to every one of us is time. So when you look at it, time is a measure that is designed to partake in the creative process. Now, the fusion of the day and the night, the fusion of the day and the night is where the sex comes in. That is when the masculine energy and the feminine energy fuses together. That fusion of the masculine and the feminine energy becomes the advent. That was how the advent of sex comes in. Now, when you also look at the heaven and the earth, the heaven and the earth also fuses at a point to create vegetation on land. That's equally another sexual productive system. Now, for every productive system, there has to be a feminine energy and a masculine energy. Just like, and mind you, when we talk about energy, energy is different from male and female gender. In every male, there is both the feminine and the masculine energy. In every female, there is both the feminine and the masculine energy. Also, when you look at it, the night is feminine energy, while the day is masculine energy. The difference between the feminine and the masculine energy is such that the feminine energy has no divine structure. The feminine energy is not structural. That's why we refer to it as Eden. The feminine energy is not something that can be touched, that can be seen with the ordinary eye. So we refer to it as being Eden. We refer to it as being spiritual. Now, when we look at the masculine energy has form. It is the manifestation of the feminine energy. That is, that which the feminine energy wants to manifest, you will now see it physically in the form of the masculine energy. Now, when we say sex, the fusion of the two energy is what we refer to as sex in the reality of it. Now, when we proceed further, when we go to the story of the Garden of Eden, the story of the Garden of Eden is another beautiful story that tells us so much about the feminine and the masculine energy. Now, we were made to understand that in the Garden of Eden, we have the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and we also have the tree of life. But because Adam and Eve consumed of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they could not have access to the tree of life. Now, what that denotes is this. Had it been Adam and Eve consumed of the tree of life, they would have become immortals, meaning that they would have had control of time. They would have had control of time. And mind you, they would still have had access to the tree of knowledge of good and evil. What does this tell us? This also tells us something very important in our marriages and in our courtship. During courtship, that is where all our majority of marriages go wrong. When Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, they were in a period of courtship. They were not married yet. Adam and Eve, while in the garden, were in a period of courtship. They were not married yet. It was when they were expelled out of the Garden of Eden, they become married. Now, the lesson this is telling us is this. In our courtship system, when we are courting, we are not supposed to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Meaning that we are not supposed to engage in sexual act during courtship. What we are supposed to concentrate upon is the aspect of the tree of life. Now, when you look at the tree of life has, it all depends on the aspect of the tree of life you are considering. But if you look at the Kabbalistic tree of life, it has 10 different kedars. It has 10 different kedars. We call it the Sephiroth. It has 10 different Sephiroths. Now, when you look at these kedars, they have inbuilt in them different lessons. If we must get marriages right, we have to get it right from the point of courtship. If the courtship fails, the marriage will fail. Most marriages that end up in divorce, we call it red flags. The red flags have been obvious right from the era of the courtship. Now, because the courtship failed, and you see, when you look at the way we all handle courtship these days, my brothers and sisters out there, it's high time we stop fooling ourselves. Courtship is like a period whereby they both needs to relate and know one another in-depthly. Courtship is not a period of compromise. Courtship is not a period when you feel, no, let me manage. You don't manage in courtship. If it works, let it work. If it's not going to work, then walk away. But the moment you eat of the fruit at the center of the garden, your judgment will be beclouded. Your judgment will become beclouded. You won't be able to make good decisions. If you must get it right, we need to start getting it right from the point of courtship. During courtship, sex, that is the fusion of our masculine and feminine genitals, is synonymous to the consumption of the tree, of the fruit of the tree at the center of the garden. When you look at your body, our genitals, our private region, constitute the center of this garden called the body. If we must get married right, my brothers and sisters out there, Courtship is a period whereby relate to one another the way you're in your originality. When you relate in your original form, if both of you can manage it, yes. Just like when you look at what the series we're coming up with, in trade by barter, what you exchange is original commodity. But when you look at the monetary system exchange on unrealistic commodity. So that is why we need to look at marriage from the perspective of trade by barter. In trade by barter, and mind you, when you are going to do an exchange, you cannot taste of the yam you have not exchanged. But when you look at the monetary system, you can even eat half mudu of gari before you buy it, and you might even end up not buying. So I need us to realize that under the barter system, we don't have to fool ourselves. Originality, it's very, very important. It's better for us to lose courtship than for us to lose marriage. The truth is this: there is no complete divorce. Even by the time you guys have separated, that which have tied you, and that's where you need to understand the issue of energy from. Even if physically you separate, I need you to understand the energy fusion cannot be separated. And that is why for every sexual act you have, there is always a residual from that mating system. Yes, you might detach physically, but you are still attached energetically. You are still attached spiritually. And just like when you look at what the Bible tells us, adultery and fornication are sins against the self. When Adam and Eve were warned not to eat of the fruit at the center of the garden, they were made to understand if they consume it, they would die. The death in question is not the physical death. The death in question is their spiritual death. The death in question is the fact that they are not going to enjoy immortality. And same thing applies too. Go and check it very well. The problem we are facing today is the wrong directional movement of the sexual energy. The sexual energy, we refer to it as the most creative energy God has created. It is the basis, it is the foundational energy that God created. And the sexual energy is either masculine or feminine in nature. I need us to understand this. It's either masculine or feminine in nature. So the wrong movement of the sexual energy is why you and I are suffering. When you look at legitimate sex, for example, when you look at legitimate intercourse, during a legitimate intercourse, there is always a release of the happy hormones. Because I need you to understand, the body is a system that operates, it's an auto system that operates itself. The moment you are going to do a legitimate sex, the happy hormones will be released. The endorphins, the serotonin, the dopamine, the oxytocins will be released into the body system, and they will now fuse. They will fuse with the sexual hormones, and they will create something new. And likewise also, when you are having an illegitimate sex, go and check it very well. When you are going to have an illegitimate sex, number one, it's always done in a hurry. It's always done with anxiety. The anxiety of, let them not meet me there. And also, when you are going to do it with anxiety, the anxiety hormones will also be released. The likes of cortisol, the likes of adrenaline hormones will be released, and they will now fuse with the sexual energy. When you look at that, what that will create is different from what that of the happy hormones will create. This is the foundation of our crisis. This is the foundation of our crisis. So, the root of our crisis, my brothers and sisters out there, is the directional movement of our sexual energy. So if we can reverse the direction of our sexual energy to the right direction, that is, the right direction in the sense that a situation whereby let sex be legitimate. If she's not your wife, you don't have a right to have sex with her. It might not make sense today. I need each and every one of us to understand this. Let's look at our fathers 10, 20 years ago. And let's look at our fathers now. Let's look at our brothers 10, 20 years ago, our uncles 10, 20 years ago, and let's look at them now. The truth is this, the same intelligence that aided them 20 years ago, even today could not aid them any longer. We are seeing that today. I need each and every one of us to understand, except we go by the design of life, except we go by the design of life, we will not get things right. We might feel, no, I'm getting it right, I'm getting it right. You are only looking at the moment. What about the aftermath? What price are you paying? What price are you paying to enjoy the moment? What price? You need to look at that. The price you are paying to enjoy the moment is going to be paid as a form of consequence in the future. My brothers, my sisters out there, I need us to realize sex is very, very, very paramount in the success of life. Even everything in life is based on sex. Take for example, in our next video, I will go into the extent of discussing with us sex in marriage. When you look at the way we are handling sex in marriage, a lot of us don't understand it. The truth is, you don't need drug to do a good sex. You don't need drug. You don't need drug. I can say it wholeheartedly. I can say it wholeheartedly. In my next video, I will go in depth to discuss how you can have a good sex even without any drug. Good sex is psychological. Good sex is a mindset. So for us to get our homes right, for us to set our marriages in place, the directional movement of our sexual energy plays a paramount role. I want to stop here for today. I pray till we meet in the next video. My brothers and sisters, for the sake of our children, let's take the harsh decision that will save tomorrow for our children. Tomorrow might be too late for us. Why? Because the age, the strength, the physicality, the vitality might no longer be on our side. But today we have the strength. Today we have the vitality. Today we have what it takes to put it right. I pray may God strengthen us and grant us the will to do that which is right for the sake of our children. Thank you and God bless.